Hello, and welcome to Crew Call, the Below the Line podcast by, for, and about the crew. So we have Anthony Robinson today. He is a second assistant director, or second AD. How are you doing today, Anthony?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing?
Good. So let's get started. First question, of course, is when did you get started in the business?
I've been in the business pretty much since about 2007 when I got my first full-time gig as a PA, but I've been off and on for probably since like 2004. I've done a couple of other PA gigs for little movies and just on the side from a regular 9-to-5 or when I was doing it.
Okay, so and how did you get into this? How did you break in?
The best way that Hollywood knows, nepotism. Pretty much, I was a friend of somebody who got me my first gig, and that first gig happened to be The Big Bang Theory. They got full-fledged in, and basically one of the most ridiculous ways. Like one of my best friends from high school, his next-door neighbor, sister. And she knew that I'd been, putting around with short films and doing some side PA work on the weekends. And he's like, "Hey, should I throw your name in?" I said, "Yeah, I don't really have a resume. She said, put together what you have, and we'll see." And I threw it in, and they happened to call me. I don't know if it was a favor or because they were still looking for PAs, but they called me, and they liked me. And the person that, luck would have it, the person who they were going to hire dropped out at the last minute, and so they called me in, and after 5 seasons, I was still working for them, so it kind of worked out well.
Oh, wow, that's great. So, Lady Luck plays a role sometimes, and that's that's better than other ways sometimes.
Oh yeah, yeah. So much of getting your foot in the door, at least for me, has been luck, and I've been really fortunate compared to some people that I know, and I think the powers that be, thank God, and I've gotten just a little bit that I've got. So.
Now, is this a department that you wanted to be in, or was there something else that perhaps you were aiming for, and this just kind of fell into your lap as being the second AD?
Well, yeah, this whole route of being an additional is I'm a second right now. I think second AD, but the whole way of ending up getting here is kind of just a roundabout thing. Originally, when I first hired in, I hired in for the writer's PA, and I was trying to get in that job because at the time I was writing. I still write on the side. Been with all of different writers groups for just fiction, not so much for screenwriting. But I've been doing that for a while, and I knew that I wanted to write. I wanted to be an auteur, and I kind of wanted to get my foot in the door that way. And the position that they had was in production. And, you take what you can get in this town. So, I went ahead and went over to the production side, production PA, and they had somebody that they had worked with that was already a writer's PA. And, I kind of was over there for a while. I'm a child of the 90s, 80s and 90s, so, I'm a big fan of Tarantino, Kevin Smith, Bob Rodriguez, those guys who basically they shot, they wrote it, they produced it, they directed it, they did all this themselves. And, coming into the multi-camera world, I wanted to do everything too. So, I didn't really have a clear direction as far as most everybody's concerned. So, I came in not, wanting to write, but not really knowing where I wanted to be and knowing that I wanted to do something with it. And, I kind of did that for a couple of years. And every time my line producer, who's a really established lady by the name of Yoshima, would ask me, she'd say, "Anthony, what do you want to do?" And I say, "Well, I want to write, produce, and direct." And she goes, "Well, come back and tell me when you know what you want to do." And it'd be the same conversation for like 5 years. And really important thing, for your listeners, as a PA starting out in town, have at least a rough idea of what you want to do. Even if you don't even want to do all the stuff, because you can always move around. Just pick one thing. Pick one thing that really interests you. And a lot of the really good producers and the people who are already working in it will help steer you and guide you and kind of get you there. And I really didn't know what I was doing, didn't know what I wanted to do, and I still wanted to do all this stuff. And then I ended up one day subbing in for our stage PA. And, it was kind of just one of those things where, he was out sick and they needed somebody and they just wanted to talk to me from the office for a couple of days. And I came down to set and, it was something sparkling there. And, the really cool thing is that, with that group of producers with Faye and, with Kellyanne Lee, who was the UPM at the time, she's now the line producer over at Mom. Those guys really want you to go places. They want you to learn. They want you to do. They want you to see. One of the things they always encourage is come down to set. Like for one series, you come down to set. Or when we were shooting pre-shoot, you come down to set. When we were shooting on the audience, you come down to set. And it was like, when if you had time, away from the office, that you go down, you go down to set, and we all took turns doing rounds, and we wire, we bring memos, and just whatever they need to restock. But you come down, you take a look, you listen, and so when I got my chance to step up a little bit, I was there, and I just paid attention and listened and learned what I could for the better part of the week that I was there, and got through it, and something kind of caught.
So just so people know, what is the difference between what does first team and second team mean for the people that don't know what that means?
Basically, first team is, just what you think it is. First team are the cast. They're the actors. They're the people who do all the real stuff and memorize the lines and whatnot. Second team can mean a couple of things, depending on who you're talking to. But largely, second team are stand-ins. They are guys who come in and basically read lines through for cameras so that they know where people are placed. They spend the week pretty much taking copious, ridiculous, heavy notes of where the actors go on certain lines, where they go on cues, where they walk to, where they cross to, which way they're turning, how they turn, so that when it comes time to what they call block cameras, which is, they put the cameras where you want during certain scenes, and, the cameras do their own little ballet. As you guys so noticed in one of your wonderful articles, there's a ballet for multi-camera that happens, and director needs to know where the cameras are going to be for any given shot, and for when an actor is walking downstairs or if they're talking at a door, you need to know what that is. So second team stand-ins are brought in to basically do that while everybody else is going through hair and makeup and getting dressed in the wardrobe.
Okay, so you kind of bounced around, and you went back down to stage P, then went back to second. And you have a very positive attitude about it. So how do you maintain that attitude when doing those kind of jobs that people might, you're going back down, and people might think it's demeaning because you went from second AD down to, as you said, pushing chairs?
Yeah, honestly, like the thing about it is, and for those gigs, those were, those, like I said, they're independent features. It's done on really low budgets, and when you go from that coming back to being a production assistant on the network show, there's a difference. It's like going, it's like driving a Pinto and then being bumped up to a Beetle. There is a difference. Like you're given given a driver's license for a Pinto, it's like it moves and it's yours. But God help you, you'd rather be in the safety of the used Volvo that using a really bad analogy. I kept a good attitude about it. Those features that I did, I consider those learning experiences. And, both of them are really good learning experiences, which I brought back to being a PA. And the thing is that, you have to keep a positive attitude because, you spend more time with these people in these offices or on stage, even with your regular family. It's one of the hardest things that you have to do as a PA. One of the hardest things you have to do as a PA is to be able to literally, to smile when your heart is breaking. It's the weird thing.
That sounds like a song title.
Yeah, well, Chaplin, man. Chaplin wrote that thing. Charlie Chaplin wrote that song, Smile When Your Heart is Breaking. And the thing is that you got, as a production assistant, and I hope I don't get too preachy here, but as a PA, you have a linchpin role. You have one of the biggest roles on the show, which is you do all the stuff that nobody else has time to do. And as ridiculous as it sounds, it's not unimportant, and you have to take pride in that fact that when you literally have somebody who's like this, I need you to take this mail down to the post office and mail it for everybody. It's like that's cash, paying bills or agents, it's the UPMs and a contract, be somebody paying a bill for your job.
Mm-hmm.
And, you have to just find the pride in what you're doing, no matter what it is. So, that's a big responsibility. People have given you the responsibility of doing things that are important for them so that they don't have to think about it. You cannot go and, that was one thing. It took me a while to realize that. Don't think that I came in with that attitude. It took me a long while to realize that what I was doing was important. So there was a certain point where, I actually started to resent having to go shopping. And it's one of the weirdest things. Yes, you're getting sent to Trader Joe's to buy people stuff that seems like a win. It's like, and it's one that it happened with us when I was working at Big Bang. It was a big deal. Pumpkin seeds. Pumpkin seeds became a really big deal in our office for a while, and it was a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Pumpkin seeds. Everybody wanted pumpkin seeds, and you get to the point where you're just like, pumpkin seeds. God, does it matter that the individual package can just be the big one? And we'll just dump it out into a thing, throw in the cup. It became like this thing. And for a while, it's like some of us didn't understand why it was a big deal. But when you realize that, when you have writers and the writers who pretty much large parts of the responsibility of the show and what it's going to feel and what's going to be and whether or not 320 people have jobs, in a month, it's on them. And so you got guys who are basically concentrating in a room. They haven't been outside. They're unlucky enough to not have, to have an interior room, and they haven't been outside in hours. And all they want right now is some weird taste that they need to have in their mouth, so they can write freaking lines, to make a joke funny. And that one taste of sunflower seeds. When you realize that you guys have been spending 20 minutes in craft services or in the lunchroom or whatever it is, break room, digging around, just buying some freaking chocolate chips. Because they need chocolate chips. Because right now they have a craving for chocolate chips, and they can't write freaking, half, 1/8 of the page because they can't find a chocolate chip. Once they get the chocolate chip in their mouth, like, great, I got the idea, and they're gone. It is the weirdest thing. But once you realize that and accept that chocolate chip is important, you can take pride in spending, 2.5 hours waiting through Trader Joe's or Gelson's or whatever store that you have to go to find whatever tea or whatever coffee. And it becomes less of a big deal when you realize that you're doing something that, while seemingly small, is actually a big deal.
So now let's talk about you being a second assistant director or being an assistant director. Let's talk about that now, because we just covered pretty much, being a PA, doing different types of jobs, the stage PA and all that stuff, and how you got to where you are now. So let's talk about your typical day and what you do now, what your responsibilities are.
There's a couple of fun things that go along with being an AD. One of the things I work with top down is basically the department DGA is often called. The first AD, who makes pretty much the schedule to keep the trains running. That's their job. It keeps the train moving forward to make whatever deadlines that they may have to do. And then the particular show I work with now is making sure we are done before the kids expire. We only have so long with minors, and we have hard deadlines. So that's their job, is to make sure that the day is planned out and that you make the move easily and quickly, and that the director gets what he wants in the time that he is allotted. Then you have the second AD, whose wonderful job is to work the schedule for hair and makeup, and pretty much write down what needs to be done at what time and who needs to be where at what time in order to make the first AD's wonderful schedule actually happen. So they spend their days basically making up call sheets and contacting and coordinating with all the departments on who needs to be seen at what time the call times are, and what time the actors' call times are, and what time they need to be in the chair to get their hair and makeup done, and what time they need to be out to report the set. And like I said, in our case, what time people have to be at school. And then you have me, who's the second assistant director. My job is to basically coordinate with the director and the second AD to make sure background happens. Background are your wonderful background extras who basically keep the set alive. So they are all the people you see in the background who are doing things, walking, talking, shuffling paper, stapling things, playing ball, juggling, you name it, they do it. And they are basically the other people who, for lack of a better term, inhabit the world of our main cast. And my job is to basically go through the script and work along with the director and the associate director who coordinates the cameras and their movement to basically fill in holes around them so there's movement and there's life and that proper reactions happen. And so basically, in your typical thing, let's just say in a typical park scene, you have your two main characters who are walking and talking across the park. And, if you're a couple certain marks and they walk and continue on, well, you want your park to look alive with whatever's going on. So say there's a carnival going. And the carnival in the background has jugglers and fire eaters and people like running with cotton candy. My job is to make those people, give those people their own direction. So I'm directing a whole other movie behind the main actors. So literally, I put these guys in, and I work with the second AD, and actually with the first AD as well. First AD kind of picks how many people he thinks he needs to fill the scene to make it look right, and he's also working on different traits, including budgets and how busy they want it. He's talking with the director as well, and they basically give a number of people and types of people they want, age ranges and looks, and kind of things that they want to fill in the background, and they communicate all that to the second AD, who basically works with whatever casting service for background. In our particular case, in a lot of shows use special casting. Those of you who know, and those of you who want to see background, you should go check it out with them on, I think it's like the first and third Wednesday of the month. But call their line. Thank you for the commercial. But basically, they basically kind of work with a bunch of different people, different SAG actors and different also ununion actors and after actors who basically have fulfilled different looks or different needs. So in our example here of the fairground or the carnival, they say they want some clowns, you want some of these people who look, who are minors, you want some people who are like teenagers, jugglers, well, fair workers, and that's kind of what I get. I get the script, and I get a bunch of different people with different looks, and my job is to place them in places where it's the most realistic or visually appealing to have them. And I give them marks, and I let them know where they should cross and where to, and what time they should do it in the script. So if they, like the actors, are walking at a certain point, and I know they're going to stop here, I want somebody to cross while they're stopped, so there's some motion in the lens, and I basically make that happen. And it's a fine juggling act because part of my day is to constantly run between the monitors at Video Village, where the director and the executive producer and writers and everybody and their mother sits, and are watching the monitors to see what the cameras are picking up. And I run back and forth between set, which is active, and the monitors to kind of look and see where my holes are. So sometimes you'll look up and you see like an actor's walked across, and now there's nothing happening behind them because the camera's moved and they've moved, and the camera that they're focusing on has moved, and suddenly there's this big emptiness and quiet behind them during a big moment when they're talking. And so you want to fill that, and not always a lot. Sometimes you want to fill just the edge, and sometimes you want to put somebody crossing through so there's motion back. But a lot of that will also depend on the director and the executive producer and the associate director, who may notice something distracting in the lens. For single camera, this is pretty straightforward. You set it, you go, you look, you kind of fill it, and mostly it's motion. I find multi-camera is a little bit more difficult. It's not rocket science, as one of my other ADs would be fond of telling me. But for me, anyways, as a new second director background, I find it difficult because you're watching 4 cameras. So you're literally watching to see and trying to anticipate again which camera that they're going to be focusing on and where they're going to cut. Because the Master 4 camera is that you are literally editing on the fly, and they have an idea of where the close is going to be and what the 3 shot's going to be, and what the Y shot is, and you have to make sure that there's just enough motion in all of those and not too much in some of them, and it all has to match. And depending on whether you're shooting in front of a live audience, where you just have to make sure it's all going at the same time, you can wind it up, let it go. Or if you are shooting in a hybrid out of order form, like you do the pre-shoot, which is stuff we shoot that we play back for the audience because for whatever reason it's either easier or shoot beforehand and show it, or just the time constraints, you can shoot another scene, or if it's so big that you just can't do it on set for the audience, you do it there. And that can be as simple as 5 people walking across and doing some office work, or as complicated as 300 people running out of doors at the same time behind you and running out of the street.
So now, talking about dealing with different people, you deal with different people on set. How is it different from dealing with first team, second team, extras, your crewmates, your boss? Is it different for each person, each group of people, or is it the same type of thing? I mean, do you have to, like certain people, you have to treat them with kid gloves, or is it they know you, it's all the same? How do you deal with all these different people? Is there a certain protocol that you have to go with?
When you're on set, you deal with a lot of different personalities. You deal with type A's, type B's. You still deal with type X, Y, Z. And the thing that I try to do is I try to treat everybody for the most part the same. I want to treat my cast, my crew, my background, everybody with respect. That's the first and foremost thing. You're here to do a job. Everybody has a job. And yes, people have to earn your respect, but I want to come out the gate giving you that respect that I'm assuming you know your job until you prove it. Prove me a liar.
Mm-hmm.
I want to assume that you know what you're doing, and I'm not going to assume less. And even if I may tell you the same thing 20 times, or I may say it in such a way that it sounds like I'm talking down to you, I'm trying not to. I'm saying it's fantastic information. So, I want to make sure that from the biggest name on the set to Lewis background extra, that they know that I know that they're here to do something, and that I want to make sure that they do it. And that's my job. My job is to make sure you do it. As an AD, you're worried about the whole picture. You're worried about making sure that everything gets done on time in a special way. Hopefully don't go over budget, because you really should have that back to it too. Because time is money, literally in this case. You're under a stopwatch, basically, and you have to come with the idea that your job is to usher people from point A to point B, and sometimes that requires a little heavy-handedness, and in some cases, in some cases that requires a delicate touch. The trick is that you need to figure out. You need to have the open-mindedness of it, and again, that when I talk about just the anticipation, you kind of have to be able to read people enough that you can figure out if somebody's having a bad day, or if somebody's just having an off day, or somebody needs a minute longer. One thing that I've always tried to do is I want to keep an eye out for my cast. Even I was doing my even as an office PA, if somebody stopped me and say, hey, people are people. I want to make sure that my cast is okay. I want to make sure that my director is okay. And I want to make sure that my ADs are okay. Because those are people who I'm spending most of my time with. And like I say, it's that family thing. We want to make sure they're okay, that they're running. And we want to make sure that they have what they need to operate. Even if that means what they need to operate is 2 extra minutes before you come in, knock on their door again. And that's one thing to kind of be aware with. That everybody's having whatever day they're having. So that's what I kind of do with them. With background is I want to respect them, that they're there to do their job, that they know that they know what they're doing, and that they're going to respect what we're doing and what's going on, that they're paying attention. And sometimes you have to be a little bit more forcefully, and I try not to unless I absolutely have to. And one thing I always tell my background, I've been telling them is like, don't make me yell at you. I don't want to yell at you. I spend most of my day talking on the walkie and, echoing out, rolling and cut, picture up, you echo all those calls and, depending what set you're working at, you're calling really loud. I spend a lot of my day passing information quickly to people. If you notice, I talk really fast. And sometimes you have to pass a lot of information to a lot of people very quickly. And sometimes I got to say it 8 different ways to make sure it gets in there, even though I'm trying to be as precise as possible. Sometimes you have to say it, literally 8 different ways, long, short, and everything. Poker will help people, I think. Like reading the tells, reading who's having a bad day because he's had 3 cups of coffee, or knowing that somebody's sagging because they forgot to echo a call, or they're not paying attention because they're chatty. Everybody's a little different, and the more you work on a set, and the more you work in an office, or the more you work anywhere, you learn people, and they learn you too, which is how my camera crew knows how to push my button sometimes. But it's one of the things where you spend time with folks, you learn as much as you can about them and what's going to be, what things you need to do for them to make sure that their day works. And that's one of the things that I think as a PA you're plunged into. You have to deal from both sides. It's like whether or not you're PA or whether or not you're an AD. You learn what you have to do to get your job done, but you also learn what people around you and what their days are like. One of the things we do sometimes, I found like good PAs that I've worked with and you doing it too, is that you find out early that somebody's not feeling good, you let your AD know. You let your director know. You let somebody know. That they may not be their day. I've been with cast who were just come back from car accidents, on their way to work. Got fender benders and they're shaking. There's things you need to know. People who had death in the family, people who, were sick, who had kids who, stubbed their toe. I mean, anything. You'd be surprised the things that will make a person's day great or horrible. I've had days where it's bad because the baby didn't sleep the night before and, or woke me up an hour before I actually need to get up. And, it just changes the course of your day. Well, that's true for everybody. And, you need to recognize, you take that little extra minute. It's one of the things I like to do, and I've learned working at Disneyland. I used to work at Disneyland way back in the day. Things I learned there is that you can take an extra minute sometimes out of your busy day to just look at somebody and ask them how they're doing and if they're okay. And and that can make a difference between somebody being able to finish a day and somebody walking off that breathing. It can in fact make a difference. And we're all rushing around to get this stuff done because, like I say, we're under the clock. That's machine is moving. But sometimes you need to just take a knee, take a minute, breathe, and recognize that other people, have stuff happening.
Well, you also have to remember that every action creates a reaction. So how you approach somebody is going to determine how they're going to react, and it's going to make your life a little harder that day on set. Or not.
Yes, because and it's why I say, giving somebody an extra 2 minutes before you knock you in. Believe me, there have been some times when you needed somebody right on set and you knock, and they don't come right away, and if you knock again, and the attitude that you'll get is 180 degrees with your second. Mm-hmm. And some people need a little bit more time, and that includes cameramen, that includes background actors, that includes everybody, and that's why I try to come with it with a smile and a good attitude.
Our last question that we ask everyone is, if you were the king of Hollywood and you can change something in your department or in the industry at all, what would it be? What would it be to make your life a little bit easier?
Production in Hollywood. Want to make my life easier. God, that's a hard question.
It is. It is.
It is. Really, I would want everybody like at least once a year to have to do somebody else's job.
Musical jobs.
Right? And just for a day. Not for the whole day, just for a day.
Mm-hmm.
And I know some long-term shows have been gigs like that where somebody can stay with the camera with it. It's a day with no grievances. Nobody gets grieved for moving stuff. And everybody does somebody else's job for a day. Because I think there's some, it's nice, like there's so many different departments who all do different things. We all know what they do, and we all, for the most part, respect what everybody else does. But I think sometimes we forget what their job entails.
Yeah.
How hard it can be. From being a PA all the way to being a construction coordinator, being an EP. It's like, I would love to see someday, the EP usually, or rather the PA who's like, oh man, that wasn't any good. That show wasn't funny. Go write it for a day. Go into the room and write it for a day, and you'll see how it is. Or the occasional actor who's like, oh, your job must be really easy. It's like, yeah, come do it for a day. Or somebody go do catering for a day. It's like every job has its own pitfalls and its own highs. And
you know what? That would be really fun to have the crew be the cast and the cast be the crew. That would be kind of funny.
It would probably be a blast for everybody in the process too. Yeah, most definitely. And I think everybody would get a little bit of insight to what everybody else does. And
yeah.
You get writers, directors, and producers who basically do all those all the time anyways. So and act. So why not have anybody else do it? Why not? Where the industry kind of shows itself is that more people don't know what other departments do.
Yeah.
Some do. Some people are really well informed. Some people have been around long enough that they've done multiple things. And then there are some folks who have absolutely no idea what lighting does.
Right.
Absolutely no idea what props actually need to do. Make sure that you have that ham sandwich that you can throw down 4 times that an actor can also eat off the ground in dirt. And it's not like yes, they make dirt edible and clean and get the sandwich that doesn't. What does it take to do that? A lot of people don't realize. And I think the more that we all get to appreciate what each other does, in part from what you guys do with the podcast, the more that I think the industry will become the big success that it wants to be. So that's my 2 cents. And
well, I like your 2 cents, Anthony.
We'll find out later when Anthony's unable to get hired at another job ever again.
No, of course not. Well, anyways, my dear, thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking this time. It's much longer than you expect it to be, and I really appreciate you for elaborating on things. I think it's going to be a great episode, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right, take care.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's it for Crew Call. If you'd like to support the podcast, remember to click the Amazon link on the Tapple website before you go shopping. It doesn't cost you anything, and Amazon gives us a little kickback. Everyone wins. And if you like what you've heard, please consider leaving us a review on iTunes. Good or bad, we really appreciate the feedback.
And hey, it's producer Chris saying thanks again to Anthony for telling us about his experiences climbing the DGA ladder. Tune in next week for transportation coordinator Michael Parati.